You're listening to the What's Happening podcast with Gary Watts.
Good morning, or good afternoon. I'm here with Tim Feener with Hills Bank. He's heads up the commercial department at Hills Bank. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Gary, good afternoon.
It is afternoon. I said morning. How about that? Another senior moment. Yeah. So, Tim, you've been at the bank how long?
39 years and counting.
39 years, almost 40 years. Wow. It goes by fast, doesn't it?
Sure does.
So if you can, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, a little bit about your family back when you were a child and being raised, and then your current family.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in Thompson, Iowa, which is in Winnebago County up by the Minnesota border. Grew up on a family farm up there with five brothers, or five of us total. I was the middle child. Folks actually still live on the farm up there. It was a dairy, hog farm, grain operation.
So if it was dairy, you were milking cows?
Sure was, yeah.
So you didn't leave the farm. 7 days a week, you had to milk the cows.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of farm families knew up there with animals is that you would go to baseball, basketball, football practice, and then no one would shower after practice because you have to go out and do chores. So
yeah,
that was common for most kids.
Right. Well, what did that teach you being on a farm? I mean, I think one of the things I always think about when I think of the farming area, farming community, I've never been a lazy farmer.
Yeah. A lot of responsibility, and Dad was good about making sure we all had chores to do, take care of calves, do the dirty work. But it was fun to be around, have some responsibility, take care of some animals, and work with the brothers, work with their families. So working in a family business like that had benefits, certainly, because you're around your folks throughout the day, your brothers throughout the day, and whether it was a job to do, whether it was field work or walking beans or tend to livestock, it was a family event for sure. Mom was a teacher. Of course, she had too many of us kids, and she decided to stay home with the boys at that time. So she took early retirement. Maybe she would have been better off teaching instead of being around all of us. But yeah.
4 boys. I bet that keep her busy, huh?
It was busy. It was busy and fun. We had a lot of, we probably like you. We had 3 channels on TV. TV was not a big part of our lives, but whatever you did watch, it was something that your parents wanted to watch. You couldn't have your own TV show on. But so, if you have 5 boys in the house, we always created our own fun and just found games to do and just had fun. We're all active in school like any small town kid and after school events.
So where's Thompson? Tell us where Winnebago County is. What's it close to?
It is, so Forest City is the hub of Winnebago Industries, but it's probably about 45 miles northwest of Mason City, 30 miles south west of Albert Lea, Minnesota, and about 7 miles south of the Minnesota border. Yep.
And then you got to tell us more about Buddy Holly and
the crash site. So I think you called me, 20 years ago, give or take, and I think you were on a trip to Minneapolis to help one of your kids or move, and I think you were in a vehicle with a trailer, and you happened to call just past Mason City, and I said, well, Gary, what exit are you at? What mile mark you're at? And I think you looked over and said 195, and I said, hey, take exit 197 if you have a few minutes. And you said you did, and I said, all right, we're gonna drive right to the Buddy Holly crash site, and it's kind of one of those hidden gems up in North Iowa. So we watched you cross the bridge down the gravel road. I think you got out of the vehicle, jogged a half mile down the section. Saw the site. They had kind of a shrine there, and it was kind of fun. So
yeah, right along the road, I think there's these glasses, big black glasses that look like Buddy Holly's.
To mark the spot.
Yeah, and it was quite a ways out in the field, and I'm going, what am I doing? I'm walking along a fence line in a cornfield, and then see it. So if people don't realize who that is, it was a Buddy Holly, Big Bopper,
Richie Valens,
and they were flying out of. Big Bopper didn't go, did he? He stayed home. He didn't fly. I can't remember who.
I think it was Waylon Jennings that stayed back.
Waylon Jennings
was on the plane, yeah.
Okay. And they were flying out of Clear Lake. They were at the surf ballroom.
Yeah.
And they're on their way to Minnesota somewhere, and they crashed shortly after takeoff, right?
Yeah. That was a few weeks after my oldest brother was born, so I know my folks were not at the concert. But
right.
I think Waldorf College had a fair number of students attend the event that night, and as they came back, a lot of them got suspended for going to the concert. It was against student protocol, I guess, to go to that, right?
And Buddy Holly was only 21, and his records are still going, or albums or whatever today. So kind of amazing. So back to the farm. So it taught you work ethic, didn't it? Discipline, work ethic.
It did. It was purpose, structure, all those things, because the animals cows. They didn't care if you're tired from practice. They just still need to be milked. They still need to be fed, still need to be cleaned, all that stuff. So it was a very structured, any farm operation with animals. So if we'd sneak up to a Twins game, we'd have to be back by as soon as we could after the game to make sure the cows were tended to. But a lot of day trips. And we took split vacations as well because you'd always leave a couple of boys back to do the chores while the other part of the family went on vacation.
So how did you do it? Back then there were no computers, right?
Right.
No cell phones.
Right.
What else? Fax, everything, copiers. I mean, how did you do it?
Pick up the phone. Sometimes it was a party line, but when we got better technology, we'd have to dial 4 digits. The prefix was always the same, but you just remember 4 numbers for anyone's phone number, and you just pick it up and call it. So you just kind of knew it.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
So you went from there, and then you went on to Iowa State, right?
Went to Iowa State. If you think back, the late 70s, the farm economy was not great. You always want to kind of follow your dad's footsteps if you could. If he's enjoying what he's doing, and you feel good, like you're doing good work. You kind of think about that. But back in the 70s, the economy was not great. So a lot of us farm kids, whether choice or not choice, farming was not part of the future back then. So you would go off to college, and then would you pursue an ag degree or something else? And a lot of us pursued degrees that led us outside the farm. And so it was a great college experience. Iowa State was a great campus. Met a lot of good friends there. And back then, a lot of us paid for our own college. You did work for farmers. You take out a couple student loans. I had a job as an RA, resident assistant on campus. So I was part of the student court system for a few years. There's a lot of interesting things that came up during those times. But you just got active, met folks, and it's just a good experience.
And you paid back your loans, right?
Yeah.
That's back when you paid back loans, student loans. So did you play baseball?
A little bit.
Iowa State?
I was, back in high school, small town, you have, you can excel at certain things, but so you walk on college and you have aspirations of doing something better. But fortunate for me, I broke my foot the first month as a walk-on, and so that kind of ended that. But it was just a fun experience.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So after Iowa State, tell me more. How'd you get to the bank?
I thought I was going to pursue further education, get a master's degree. Believe it or not, I had aspirations to become an economics professor. So interviewed a couple different places, applied Kansas State, Missouri, Purdue, South Dakota, Minnesota. You get a couple acceptance letters, and then you do a couple interviews just for, why not? Farm crisis, money's tight. Interview with a few different employers, and got a few offers. And I really considered Hills Bank at the time because, it's a college campus, college community. You always feel like, all right, I'll do this for a few years and then get my degree at night or evenings and then pursue that later. And then, like anything, you make plans and then life happens. And so I never pursued that. I stayed at Hills Bank ever since.
Wow, 39 years.
Yeah.
So you started as a loan officer, right?
Yep, a general banking officer, so you could make loans, open accounts, help with safe deposit boxes, pick up cigarette butts in the parking lot, whatever it took, right.
So tell us a little bit, how many loan officers were back then? Is there 5 or 6?
Oh, I can't remember. When I started, it was, I think 2 days before I started, it was 2 banks. It was Hills and South Gilbert, and then the day I started, the bank had actually acquired Unibank. Double locations, they had Coralville and North Liberty. As far as the number of loan officers, I can't recall. I can, they all fit on one half sheet of paper, I remember that. But,
I can think of their names, but it couldn't have been over 10. It couldn't have been. It's 5 or 6, 7, I think, back then. Hey, so tell us a little bit about, do you remember when they annexed the railroad and brought Hills to Gilbert Street? Can you tell us that story? That's a phenomenal story because I remember when that happened.
Yeah, that is a good story.
Yeah.
And that was actually when I was in college. But when I started the bank, it's because of that railroad annexation that I was able to actually come to the bank because back then the banking law was such that you had to have adjoining communities to expand to the next community. So like Iowa City or Coralville, they join, or Cedar Rapids or Hiawatha, they join. But Hills and Iowa City were separated. So the bank president at the time, John Hughes, found a way to have the city of Hills annex the railroad that connected to Iowa City. And that's how that's how Hills Bank was able to expand it to Iowa City. And they opened 2 more branches, needed more loan officers, and they hired a few of us farm kids back in the time.
Yeah, it's amazing because I remember when Hills first started, and I knew Hughes, fairly well. I'd met him a few times, and I was just a kid starting in real estate. And I used to drive to Hills and to make a deposit in my checking account. And everybody in my real estate office would start making fun of me. What are you doing going to Hills? And I just kind of like those guys. They seem nice to me and friendly. And then when they annexed the railroad and got the bank in Gilbert Street, that was the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
I was caught up by the energy too. The staff at the time.
Dwight
and all the loan officers and banking staff, trust department, they were just all young, energetic men and women. It was just fun to be around. And like anything, you get into it, you get in the culture, and you just kind of, it's proud to go to work.
Well, they made it friendly. They made you feel good when you did business with them. I can remember always walking into Hills, and if John Hughes saw me, he'd come out of his office, say hello, and I'm like, why are you saying hi to me? I'm just some kid in real estate.
Yeah, he was very good about that.
Yeah,
very good
to his customers. So, and what is it today? $4 billion in assets and 120,000 customers.
That is right. Yeah,
and it's like the second largest bank in Iowa, next to Brenton, isn't it?
It's or Bankers Trust.
Or Bankers Trust. Yeah.
Brenton, that's an '80s or maybe '90s. So
that's dating me back
a little bit.
So it's just amazing growth. And I remember one time I came into Gilbert Street office and I was going through the drive up, and somebody came out and washed my windows. I thought, what are you doing? Just that extra little service thing. Who would wash your windows at a bank? I just thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, we used to have customer appreciation days. Now we don't do windows, but we do hand out sweet corn. That's our customer appreciation.
I just
day.
had some last week. Yeah. So, and I also remember, didn't you have when you first started down there? I think early '80s, you had a hog roast or some type of big picnic down in Hills at Labor Day, didn't you?
Yeah, Labor Day. For many years, the Hills Bank Barbecue. They'd serve. Right. I think the upward total is probably 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, and we had a couple of flood events, and the rain kind of caused us to cancel the event one year, and it was just the combination of that, along with traffic being backed up on the interstate, caused a little bit more liability than what we were prepared for. And I think Johnson County Sheriff was very cooperative, but also happy not have to deal with that issue.
I remember it was always packed. So. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your family, and I know you're a foster parent, and tell us about Leslie and your kids, and you came here, and then you got married, and
married, met Leslie, and she's at the University of Iowa, and she thinks she's the director of arts and humanities in the university communications division. She's in the old Capitol Mall. Her position is interesting. She has a lot of university resources, authors, poets, painters, writers that she will send out and deploy into work with different school districts in the state, and have folks go out and be with those classes. And she has a camp every summer that she'll invite 50, 60 kids to that, but just kind of increase and expand that art experience. She had a booth a few years at the Varied Industries building at the State Fair, which was always met a lot of people, had a lot of contacts there too.
Isn't your daughter a teacher?
Daughter's a teacher. She's in Waukee, and another daughter's in Dallas. She's with a health organization down there, going to get married next year. Another daughter back in Iowa City will start at the university in a position here this month. And then our son is in I think it's called a sound design school at this point. So,
really, that something to do with TV or?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So we're just down to one extra in the house, the family dog. So I still rate below the dog in our house, as you might guess that.
Are you in the top 10 or not?
I might have cracked the top 10.
Maybe. Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah. That sounds good. So tell us a little bit more about, you got started in banking. How's that changed over the years? What do you see when you look back over 39 years when you first started?
Yeah, that's a trick. I mean, all the personal service that you give, you want to try to emulate that. How do you expand that, make that scalable so you can do that with many customers? As you mentioned, 120,000 customers, and try to do that. That's not easy. At the same time, that's always been our mission, always been our goal to deliver that service. Technology has helped. We have many more locations than we did when I started the bank. The customer base has grown. We've expanded to different communities, and primarily Lynn, Johnson, Washington County, and the counties surrounding those we serve now. But Yeah, it's. I think we ask that question every day when we wake up. How can we serve our folks better? What our customers want to see, what services they want to see, how is best to deliver that, whether it's in person, on the phone, online, a few states away. How does that work? So that's a question that we ask, and probably every business would ask. How do we serve our customers for the needs that they to fill or to pursue their financial lives?
So do you call the area like the Golden Egg, or what do you call it?
Golden Oval. Yeah.
Golden Oval, and that's Dallas, Washington, Kelowna, and all the way up to Hiawatha, Marion, Cedar Rapids. How many bank buildings do you have?
We have 18.
18 bank buildings. Yeah.
We'll open a 19th in Williamsburg in 2024.
So how's banking changed? To me, it's a relationship. It always has been. How is it with you? You obviously work with your younger folks and younger loan officers. What do you try to teach them, or how do you work with those folks as opposed to what it was when you first started?
I think it's a lot of the same. Again, millennials and other folks, they want to be do business differently than their parents did. Obviously, a lot of fewer folks are writing checks these days. A lot of fewer folks are using certain means that we used back in the 80s, 90s, and zeros. And this way, or this generation, and the parents as well, just are looking for like, all right, is the bank open on Saturday at 6 o'clock? They are online, and just providing that access. ATM machines used to be a big thing back in the day, but as the society moves to more cashless type transactions and more electronic transactions, it's just a different way of conducting business. But yet the things that are still similar are greeting people, taking care of whatever issues they see that will make their lives easier from a financial space. But people still buy houses. People still open businesses. People still buy farms. People still travel. People still save for college, retirement. Those things are the same. The method of how we do that, or how this accomplished these days, is just differently because of the technology and the economies of scale.
What's the advantage of a cashless society? Do you see any, or is it a negative thing?
I think it's good. It's like anything. It's you grow up with what you were used to. You see how things evolve, and you see how your kids kind of use banking services, and it's just like anything. You just have to be in that space, ready for it when that time comes. So probably like you see in real estate transactions, how many purchase agreements are signed electronically, how many folks you actually see. Instead of going house to house, they might view houses online and say, Gary, thanks for these 20 houses, but I want to look at these 2 or 3. And, you'll do virtual tours of houses and stuff like that, with a drone, and the different ways of selling houses. And you can imagine the banking is kind of similar to that. There's just a different way of doing things. It's good in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's not as personal. And it's like with real estate, you used to have to sit down. We had the multiple listing service. In order to see the listings, you had to see our sheets.
Yeah.
There wasn't any Zillow or Realtor.com, so you had to actually meet with a real estate broker, get to know them, and work with them and have a relationship with them. Now anymore, they just go online, they look on Zillow, figure it out, rule it out, and then maybe call somebody that if that's what they want. They've already ruled it out, and they've already looked at their phone. So, and it's the same with, I think, with banking. I mean, a lot of it's online. There's chat rooms, which I can't figure out. If you go to the grocery store right now, the other day about a month ago, I'm in Hy-Vee, and a lady was writing a check. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, I remember the days, everything was a check. You wrote a check for everything. And I'm like going, what do you do? I use your credit card. Here I am giving her a hard time. I didn't say anything, but I thought, well, she took forever. Yeah. But I thought, well, that's how you keep a record of it. I wonder how many kids today can balance a checkbook.
I don't know. That's a good question. I do know that could my kids do that? Maybe. But I do think, and sometimes I'll write a check just because if I'm going to spend money, I kind of want to feel the pain of writing the check, as opposed to the ease of having to deduct it from the account.
If you're contributing to it or whatnot. So it's just kind of easy just to make a transfer or a wire.
Sure is.
It's just kind of easy. But you're right. You need to see that, write the name out and scribble it out. I think it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So how did, tell us a little bit about at the bank and what you went through in the commercial department with COVID. How did that work at the bank? How that was difficult on all of us.
It was difficult, and then of course they rolled out the PPP program, which helped keep a lot of folks in business during that time because a lot of patronage went down across the board because people were staying home, and so obviously the paperless loans and e-sign and all those things that people were worried about. Now you have no choice. You have to do it. You have to embrace it. So as a bank, as an institution, we were prepared for that. You never know when you're talking about scalability and efficiency of what things you're working on, and then when COVID came, you're happy that you're working on those items because they became the mode of business, the way to conduct business, because all the other ways were being shut down, basically. So for us and for a lot of institutions, it was just helpful to have that technology ready to go and queued up the way it was. And not to say there was a good time for any illness or like COVID was at all, but had that happened a couple years earlier, that would have been really tricky as to how, because the technology not caught up for some of those things. But as it turned out, a lot of places were ready for that, but not that anybody wanted it, of course.
How did you do loans when you're not in person? Was everything Zoom? How did the bank operate with folks? Were they at home trying to work on the computer screens, or were people around, or how did it work from a personal standpoint?
Telephone usage was high. We had a lot of folks from our institution work from home and use their phone or cell phone, and the phone was a big way to conduct that. People are online as well, but as far as meetings, you have to get together and meet as an organization. We did a lot of WebExes, Zooms. You can meet that way. You can have conference calls, but it all worked out. When you have 500 and some employees, and all right, so who has to be here? Who can work from home? And how do we still communicate, stay on the same page? And technology helped out with all that for sure.
Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on the economy as you look at the big picture, local picture. We went through as far as growth in the last few years. At least the real estate market was amazing. Yeah. Interest rates were low, 2.5%, 3%. Now they're twice that or more. What do you see? What's going on? I know they're trying to control inflation, but from the banking perspective, what are you seeing? How do you see this?
Yeah, going back over the 39 years, the rates are high today, but relatively speaking, they're not too far off probably from the 40-year averages, I suspect. It's different for the folks in the last 5 years because when rates were down 2-3% for house loans and now they're in that 5-6, possibly 7% range, it's different from that standpoint. From a business standpoint, it's just if you look at a investment property, does it cash flow at 3%? Does it cash flow now at 6 or 7%? That's a different equation, so it'll have some impact on the appraised values because the appraisal is kind of a function of the income valuation of that's been tightened because of property tax increase and insurance increase and all things that go with the inflation part, plus the interest rate going up, then the valuations might be impacted by that accordingly. But overall, I mean, from a bank standpoint, we're in Iowa, pretty solid state. We're not on the east or west coast, so the highs and lows are not like other folks have experienced. It's not easy to go through something like this, but at the same time, we're probably about as prepared for it as any state, I would think.
So it's been, in the last, year or so, 25 rate increases?
Oh, I don't know if it's been quite that many, but it's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
It feels like that maybe every other week or so.
And it seems like there was one, a month ago or so, they went up, and maybe they're going to slow down.
Yeah.
And the reason they're doing that's because of inflation?
It is, yeah. Try to keep that under wraps so that a year or two from now when we're talking a little bit more stabilized economy and inflation's in check.
But has it slowed it down? I mean, you look at the stock markets rolling along. It seems like people are working, people are making more money. I mean, it's a strange period, isn't it? It
is strange. The employment's pretty good, relatively speaking. But again, the whole part on the Fed's move for raising rates, this has slowed down the economy, and we've seen some people entertain projects and kind of step back just because of the current rate environment. They'll probably still pursue them. There's a lot of factors in the economy that are still positive. But the rate thing is a little bit tricky because the numbers might not work based on the projects that they're looking at, whether it's buying that farm or buying this rental property or buying that house at at the new interest rate. Maybe the payments are higher than before, but I think people are in a decent position to be ready to move once they feel they're more comfortable with where the economy's at.
Don't you think more people have equity in houses now than they did in like the 7 and 8 and 9 when it went crazy, when it went the other way?
I think so.
They didn't have as much equity.
I think so. I think there's some really, I guess, aggressive years in that low interest rate environment. These rates, think back, We had low rates in 87, low rates in 93, low rates in 98, low rates in 01, 03, 08, 2013. So it seems like about every 5 years that I can remember, the rate kind of hits a low part. Yeah, I think that people kind of see that that ebb and flow of interest rates and figure that, well, I'll wait now. In a few years, this will self-correct. But
it may not.
Why not?
We never know, do we? It seems like in a couple of years it'll come back down, but none of us know that.
No, none of us know it. None of us knew what COVID was going to do either.
Yeah, from a housing perspective, it seems like it's still a great demand for housing.
Yeah.
And you think it would slow way down because of interest rates, but
And you might know this too, but on COVID years, I thought, how is anyone going to show a house? How is everyone going to buy a house? But yet the market was strong that year, so it's hard to outguess the market on some of those
driving
things.
separate cars, everybody wore a mask, and it was difficult.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit. I think it's an amazing story, Hills Bank. Can you get a little history for us on Hills Bank, and then tell us about the stockholders. I mean, there's 2,000, 2,500, and they're all spread out over several hundreds of people.
Yeah,
It's an amazing story.
Started in Hills, Iowa, 1904, and
Yep.
fair number of shareholders at that time, limited number of shareholders. I think we got about 2,700 shareholders today. And a lot of our shareholders have been through thick and thin, as you know, from floods and farm crisis and housing crisis. And it's a pretty loyal group, very supportive group. And we're just happy to have the folks we do, One Stock in the Bank, a lot of local folks. I don't know the percentage of local ownership versus folks from outside of our area, but very high local ownership.
Do you think you'll just stay in the Golden Oval? I mean, is there any interest in any more expansion, or you just want to stay with where you're at here in eastern Iowa?
Yeah, good question. I mean, for the immediate future, it's the Golden Oval and sort of the communities that we're at, expanded to Williamsburg, but down the road, hard to say.
Hard to say.
Yeah, as a growing organization, you look for those opportunities. You want to increase the shareholder value, the footprint, all that stuff, but when that happens, or if that happens, that's out there in the future.
Well, I think the growth's been amazing. I mean, $4 billion in assets. That's just amazing. When you annex, when they annex the railroad, like 81 or 80?
82.
82.
You might be, maybe it was the end of 81, but yeah, back in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah,
I was in college, Gary. You were here. You probably tell me.
I was here because I thought, well, I don't have to drive to Hills anymore. I can just go over on Gilbert Street. It's great.
Yeah,
So yeah, then that was Frank Eicher owned Unibank, wasn't it?
it was.
And then you bought Unibank, and that's where the slides used to be, up and down. We could get on those carpet slides and go up and down by Unibank.
No, that
you
was
don't
before
remember
my
that
time.
either.
I don't know that.
Sorry, I'm bringing up all this old history of Coralville. So.
No, I have a good memory of that.
So if you had, if you were talking to a young person in college or wants to be apprenticed at the bank and they want to be a loan officer,
Sure.
what would you tell them based on your almost 40 years experience at the bank? What would they need to look at? What kind of classes? What's it like to be a lender?
Yeah, I would say just embrace lifelong learning. Get around, get to know people, make friends, establish friendships, get active in the community, establish networks. Probably no different than real estate. We're just looking for good people to connect to other good people. And in our space, we're on the financial side of things. In your space, the real estate side of things. But you and I both need we need good accountants out there. We need good people in the insurance area. We need good attorneys. It takes all of us to kind of have good experience for people who want to buy a house or start a business, and we just have to work together. And we've worked together on many deals over the years, and I appreciate all the stuff you've done to help make those transactions smooth. But it takes all of us. So you can always use one more good banker, one more good realtor, one more good attorney, one more good. There's always room for people like that. So if you're a college student thinking about getting into, well, essentially we're in the people business like you are, and if the American dream is to buy a house, it takes several professions to kind of help make that happen. With insurance, attorney, like I said. So our job is to make sure that we can help folks reach their financial goals, whether it's buying a house, but yet don't set them up to fail. And I think that's what happened during the mortgage crisis. A lot of the Fannie Mae rules kind of expanded affordability beyond what we were thinking was possible, and that didn't work out so well. And
So you're loaning money to people that couldn't afford it.
yeah, I
That's
think they
kinda
just
what they
kind of
did.
based it on credit scores and things, and they kind of ignored the expenses relative to income, and that kind of got out of hand a little bit. But
I think we shifted the other way now. It's a little tighter. It's probably better. So that gets into regulation. Do you have any? Tell us about regulation in lending. It's pretty strict, isn't it?
I think it's, in the 40 years I've been there, I think it's a pretty good compromise right now, a pretty good balance. It's not too out there like during the mortgage crisis, and there's rules out there for ability to pay and qualified buyers, and between credit scores and income, and I guess the ratios that are set out there, it seems to be pretty reasonable, I would think. So, yeah.
Good. So back, I don't mean to skip around, but go back to kids starting out or young people in college. What would you major in? Would you try to major in business, accounting? What's a good background? Economics? If you're thinking about a banking.
I think all those are good. I think what any employer is going to be looking for is, obviously the financial stuff is important, but the skill sets of talking with people, critical thinking, good on your feet, just kind of think through the situation. But really just kind of, we're looking for curious people, looking for people who can network with others, make them feel at ease, because it's kind of it could be a stressful process, but we're just people looking to help other people reach their financial goals. And if you're a economics major, business major, communications major, or something non-business school, a teacher, educational background, I think all those can work.
Take us through a loan process on, let's say you're buying a house, what a lender looks at, and all the steps you have to go through. That's a lot more than just walking in and filling out a loan app, isn't it? To get a deal done and closed.
It is. I think a lot of folks, when they want to get pre-approved, especially in the market the last few years where you have to have a pre-approval letter, because otherwise the house has been sold or it could be sold. So we'll coach our folks to come in, look at their income, look at their expenses, figure out credit score-wise, down payment-wise, or if there's a down payment, because there's loans out there for no money down, and just try to figure out, all right, where do you want to be? Here's your expenses today. How there's rules as to what the government will allow us to go up to. Do you want to be there? Is your income going to expand to catch up to it? Remember, the taxes are going to kick in, all that stuff. But I think we want to help people reach their goals and dreams, but we don't want to get them in trouble. We don't want to loan them into, oh, wow, this payment along with my other payments are just too high. And you never want to be that lender that puts them in a situation they're regretting their house purchase because they're too far in debt.
But you got that process. You've got appraisals that come in. There's contract dates. There's inspections. You got to get them closed. There's title opinions. There's legal work. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about in your underwriting department, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of times we can get the applicants, the borrowers approved, but maybe the house they're trying to buy isn't approved or can't be approved because it's in disrepair, or there's some other structural issue with it, or there's a low appraisal, or maybe it's in a flood zone and they didn't anticipate the flood insurance. But there's a few times we'll approve the folks with a pre-approval letter, then they find a property and maybe it's on a leasehold estate, maybe it's on a shared drive that there's no agreement for, that's still has to be ironed out. But a lot of those things do come together because people do understand the issue and work together to get those figured out. But sometimes if it's a brand new condominium, they want to go fixed rate financing. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, it doesn't quite qualify, so we'll take those in-house.
So the main thing is, if you're thinking about whatever you're buying, a car or whatever, you need a home loan or personal loan, just go see your local banker, right?
Yeah.
And go through the whole process. What do you make? What do you take home? How long you work there? There's a lot of criteria. Tell us about credit rating. A lot of young folks may not even know their credit rating or had it looked at. Tell us how you don't have a second chance to make that, do you? I mean,
you can always improve it, and there's some credit restoration companies that help you do that, and those have been very helpful. That as a person that has good or bad credit, you can kind of work with these companies and kind of understand what goes into the mix. So if your credit score is a little bit on the lower side, they can do things that, hey, we can get this up 50, 70 basis points higher in 90 days. Just do this, and they can help coach through that. And they work with, they have a plan to make your credit score improve. And recommend people follow that plan. We can coach them, generally speaking, but if you want to get to the nuts and bolts of it and understand exactly what it takes, the credit restoration companies are good. From that standpoint, as long as you pay your bills on time, the fact you have some credit out there is good. It's helpful. We have some folks with no credit because they've not needed credit before. That's not very many, but it does happen, and we recognize that, and we have programs to help those folks as well.
How do you look at school loans?
School loans are just part of growing up. It's just an expense. So
Right.
there's programs out there to defer, not necessarily count that against you because it's in deferment. In theory, if they're in deferment, then when that loan payment does kick in, your income should be higher as well. But there's programs out there that's not as big of a hurdle as it can be. But
There's lots of things to think about, isn't there? Tell us about what are your thoughts on what keeps you up at night, being in the commercial department and in charge of it.
Oh, you're talking business. Okay.
Yeah, business, not personal. We could do personal too. I don't know if we have time.
Huh? I don't know. As you get older, Gary, and you probably know this too, you can only worry about certain things you can worry about. You can't. There's things within your control, things outside your control. You just have to trust that things will work out, that this industry will correct itself. The state will be fine. Whether it's climate change or anything out there, you just have to believe that we're all in this together and working for a common solution that fits everybody. But I haven't given up on worrying sleep or losing sleep about all those things. But it's I think as you get older, you put things more in perspective and just gotta trust that there's people behind the scenes to work things out, and sometimes they have to go through a few gyrations to get there. But yeah, I think what I worry about more at this point is, all right, so my kids are out of the house. What's going on in their lives, and how are they doing? Did I help them out enough? Did I teach them enough lessons or help them learn lessons as kids? And yeah, you always wonder as a parent, did I do the right thing and stuff like that? But yeah.
What are you most proud of?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Kids.
Kids, family.
Kids, family. Yeah.
Tell us about the foster care. I think that's just amazing. How much fun was that, and how much did you enjoy that? And how many foster children did you have? 4 or 5?
We that was back about 20 some years ago. We were licensed foster parents through Kirkwood. Did a program up there and got licensed, and I think we had 11 kids over 4 years, and it was a great experience. We had great people to work with in DHS, great people. Iowa City Police Department, great to work with. Medical professionals. It was just a good experience. And then we didn't enter foster parenting with the idea of adopting, but that's actually what happened with the last foster child that we had that became a parent. We got him at 7 months old and became a parent a couple years in the process, that his prospects were being reunified with his family. His birth family was not going to happen. And being in a family surrounded by girls, the fact that he was a boy, I thought that's going to help my chances here. I won't be so outnumbered as much. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, we adopted him when he was 2.5.
So where do you find foster children? How does that work? Tell us more about that.
It's I think the need is out there for so much. I think the trick is there's enough kids in the foster system looking for families that I think that outnumbers the need of foster kids. So we did it to help fill a need in the community, and it's I think like anything, you looking back on it now, you kind of wonder, gosh, we should have kept our foster license longer. There's endless need out there, and but our energy level is starting to wane after a few years, and we the 11 kids, and then you always have that balance about am I spending enough time with all the kids, and you always kind of that pulls you out as well, especially when you're got a job and you have other things going on in the world that you don't want to shortchange your kids, and like everything in life, it's just kind of a balancing act.
So you actually had full custody. I mean, you raised them. I mean, they lived with you.
Yeah.
You went to school.
Yeah, we adopted them age 2, 2.5, and yeah.
So the whole thing, huh? And then
You bet.
when they get old enough, they just leave, or they go back.
Like any other kid, they they outgrow their parents, then they come back sometime.
They come back and they figure out how smart you are or not.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah.
Well, that's really neat. So I'm sure there's a dramatic need for foster care.
There is.
Isn't it?
There is.
That's a neat thing. So,
Yeah.
what else could you tell us about what people wouldn't know about Tim Feener? Anything else?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I try to get home probably every month or so. Dad is now in a nursing home, and you think back that I'm fortunate he's 91. So you think back that how fortunate you are when your parents are still alive, lived a full life, and enjoy spending time with him. I can get him out of the nursing home, take him back to the farm, and fill him up with a rhubarb cake and ice cream, get him all sugared up, get him on high. But he sure enjoys getting out and seeing the crops and just kind of being back and sitting in his favorite chair at the house. But he understands it too. It's just his body is just the signs of age. So
yeah. Who farms the farm? One of your brothers? Or?
Yeah, my oldest brother's on the farm.
He does that and he farms it. Oh, that's neat. Well, this has been great. Tim, anything else you can think of about lending or Hills Bank or?
Gosh, I don't know. There's so many
stories.
It's just a great, and I think you moved to Iowa City in the mid '70s as well. But yeah. But just moving to Iowa City from where you were, and not that there's anything wrong with the place I grew up at. It's a great childhood experience, great experience still. But Iowa City is just so much to offer. So many neat, interesting folks, points of view, entertainment, sports, healthcare. It's just a very vibrant community, and just so grateful to live in this part of the state and the Iowa City Corville community, and I've raised our family here, and my wife is from this area originally, and it's just a great family experience.
Well, we're both fortunate. You know, you kind of came through here through Iowa State, through the bank. You recruited to come to Hills Bank, Iowa City. Becky and I just came here out of she was a court reporter out of Eastern Iowa, and I was an auditor out of Eastern Iowa. Picked Iowa City because I was a Hawkeye fan. So I thought, well, I'll just come to Iowa City. Didn't know anybody, so
yeah.
And the rest is history. It's a great community. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to have a family and have children. Yeah. And it's like a gem. It's like, when you recruit people to the hospital or the University of Iowa, they go, Iowa, it's full of cornfields and hogs and cattle, but wait till they get to Ipah City and they love it. So much
being
going
an Iowa
on.
State grad, and my wife's an Iowa grad. All my kids are Iowa grads. I know many folks in the University of Iowa staff community, and
right.
And that is totally fine by me. Great people.
Great, good. Well, it's good to talk to you, Tim, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me.